Christmas spirit is strong up here. It's sunny, it's snowing out.
You really got to be one heck of a milking cow to get your own headstone here.
A little more practice and a little more ability in the axe throwing.
They're not a talkative bunch.
Basic rules is no spitting and cheating. It's a tough one.
Hey, John Bartell here. Winter and the holiday season is upon us, and there's no better place to celebrate than right here in the Golden State. Over the next half hour, I'm going to take you all the way from the Sierra foothills down to the California coast. And we're going to give you some great travel tips along the way. First stop, though, is right here in Long Barn at the ice skating rink. Months before the snow turns the foothills of Tuolumne County white, the faint hum of a Zamboni can be heard grooming the ice at the Long Barn Lodge.
Back in the day, we had to shovel it with shovels, and then we would burn it with torches and then put a hose to it.
Around town, he's known as Mike McMullen, but on his 1950s era Zamboni, Mike has a different name.
You can call me Iceman.
Iceman.
Right? On a busy day, you'll do about 10 buckets.
It doesn't take more than a few passes to smooth out the 5,000 square foot ice rink. Ice is what's shoveled out of Long Barn these days, but in the late 1800s, workers like Mike would have shoveled horse manure. You see, Long Barn used to be a wagon stop for miners traveling over Sonora Pass.
And it was basically a stable with horses.
Lucky for Mike, the ice rink replaced the manure-filled stables in the 1960s. Mike loved Long Barn so much that he continued to work here for the new owners.
40 years, 74 I've been here.
Thanks to Mike's love for the ice, skaters at Long Barn can enjoy the rink for a long time.
All aboard the Polar Express! Not really. We're actually going to be riding a giant snow blender up in the little locomotive town of Portola. You can see how they remove large amounts of snow off the railroad tracks in the Sierra.
The year was 1952 and a snowstorm of the century hits Donner Pass. That's when a train bound for San Francisco gets stuck in the snow. 222 passengers were on board, and the only way to get to those passengers was with a rotary snowplow, like this.
My dad was actually on the crew that went up to rescue the people.
This is the Southern Pacific 208 rotary snowplow, one of the two snowplows that rescued the 222 passengers in 1952.
So I can remember them ever since remembering.
This locomotive is a cherished antique at the Western Pacific Railroad Museum in Portola, and it's been Charlie Spike's childhood dream to operate it.
It is an absolute thrill to be able to operate this machine that I've known forever.
As a kid, Charlie grew up watching the rotary plow moving snow. These days, he sits shotgun in the locomotive with engineer Steve Habbick.
It was originally built in 1927. It was steam powered back then.
The old girl used to run on steam, but in the 1970s, it was converted to diesel electric.
A lot more snow than I thought was out here.
It takes a small army to operate the rotary snowplow, and the museum only brings it out when they need to remove a lot of snow off the tracks.
They would go, what, Steve, 150 feet or more? Yeah, easily.
Charlie says the massive rotary blades are powered by a 1,500 horsepower, 600 volt electric engine that literally devours snow. So operating the plow is a specialized job under normal conditions. Yeehaw! But luckily, Charlie was nice enough to let me take the controls.
You do not want to be standing under this thing.
No.
No.
Snow in the Sierra is some of the hardest in the nation. Some even call it Sierra cement. And without the rotary snowplow, Donner Summit would be impassable. And those passengers in 1952 would probably die.
Few things are more iconic than the candy cane. These days, factories pump out the holiday candy by the thousands. But here in the little gold rush town of Columbia, California's oldest family-run candy shop makes them the old-fashioned way. Every day at the stroke of noon and then again at 1 o'clock, curious tourists peer through the window of Nelson's Columbia Candy Kitchen to witness this, the big pour.
It's very hot, so just be careful.
The 300-degree liquid is a mixture of cornstarch, water, and a lot of sugar.
28 pounds.
28 pounds, that's a lot of sugar. The Nelson Columbia Candy Kitchen has been family-owned for 98 years, making it the oldest family-run candy kitchen in California.
5 generations.
The Nelson family took over the business in the 1930s and, over time, perfected the art of cooking confections the old-fashioned way.
Everything in this room is over 100 years old.
And the one family recipe that's as old as the cooking tools is the Nelson's famous candy cane.
Just the way you process it is how it determines what the end result is.
Boiling, mixing, pulling, and rolling, the process is all hands-on, right down to the signature bend in the cane. The centuries-old candy kitchen has survived wartime rations, the Great Depression, and past pandemics. So, as the new year rolls in, Janice remains optimistic.
This too shall pass.
Coming up, we head to Plumas County for the oldest ski race in the state. Then we get in touch with our inner woodsman with a little axe throwing. More to come when Bartell's Backroads returns. Welcome back to Bartell's Backroads. We're touring California, showing you some of my favorite winter activities. If you want to get in touch with your inner woodsman, head to Lake Tahoe for a little axe throwing. All right, so the Christmas spirit is strong up here in Lake Tahoe. It's sunny, it's snowing out, and it's a great time to throw some axes. There's only one place at Lake Tahoe where you can unleash your inner woodsman, and it's right over the border in State Line, Nevada.
All right, my name is Trevor Thompson, and we're here at Tahoe Axe Throwing. It's day 4 of our grand opening.
You own an axe throwing business, you don't need a fancy name, and here at Tahoe Axe Throwing, Trevor Thompson only provides customers with the bare essentials: an axe and a target.
So we go by the World Axe Throwing Federation as far as our axes. So they're over 1.5 pounds. The blade's not over 4 inches.
Yeah, you heard him right. There really is a World Axe Federation. The art of axe throwing is super popular over in Canada. And here in Lake Tahoe, Trevor is holding a Christmas axe throwing competition to drum up some interest here in the States.
Yeah, so we're going best out of 5 throws. The bullseye here is 5 points, 3, 2, 1, and 0.
Okay, so the rules are pretty simple, but the technique is not.
Oh, nope, no, that. Well, no, yeah.
Well, as you can see, my first 5 throws were less than satisfactory.
What do you think I did wrong here?
You know, I think you just need a little more practice and a little more ability in the axe throwing.
Don't expect a lot of encouragement from Trevor. He's the one that has to sharpen all those axe blades when they hit the ground.
You know, for beginners, there's going to be a lot of axes hitting the ground, hitting the foam padding on the floor.
Well, the chestnut is an old-fashioned Christmas treat. You're supposed to roast them on an open fire, but it's a little tough to know when they're done. But if you head to Auburn, there's a guy that'll show you how to pick them and roast them at his chestnut orchard. Just outside the city limits of Auburn,
These are just remnants of what came down late.
is a place where you'll find chestnuts littering the ground. These are very pokey here. How do you get in these things?
When they're on the ground, we take our foot and we kind of roll the back of the pod.
Every year, Tim Boughton grows around 8,000 pounds of chestnuts on his orchard at Amber Oaks Berry Farm.
So I take this hole in and I just cut off the very end of it. I don't waste much. There's really not much in here.
These are American chestnuts, and starting in mid-October, Tim welcomes people on his farm to teach them his secret to roasting chestnuts.
I cut the end off, I boil them 1 minute, and then I roast them till the shell's black. The whole process takes about 5 minutes once the water's boiling.
The American chestnut is kind of a rare commodity. In the past, they were primarily grown on the East Coast until they were hit by disease.
And the blight came from China in the 70s and started killing the trees by the million.
Luckily, the American chestnut trees on the western side of the Rockies were not affected.
As soon as the water evaporates off the chestnuts, the skin will start to shrink.
When cooking chestnuts, you want a lot of heat. Tim likes to use a barbecue cooking basket to hit the chestnuts with direct flames. Do I have to have a gas stove, or could I do this over an electric one?
You can do it anywhere. You can see the shell is black now.
Uh-huh.
You can take the back of the shell and squeeze it, and the chestnut will come right out of its shell like that.
After the break, we see what it's like to compete in California's oldest ski race. Hey, John Bartell here. We're traveling California showing you some of my favorite winter activities. If you like skiing, you should head up to Plumas County to the little town of Johnsville, where they hold the oldest ski race in the state. The Quincy High School wood shop is not normally open on Saturdays, but the big race is tomorrow.
Well, we're here in Plumas County in the heart of the Northern Sierra.
Chris Murray's not a competitor in the race, but rather a carpentry teacher.
And this started in the early 1860s.
And his latest student is Max Breedlove.
Always said I would never race until I made my own set of skis.
If you're a little confused, this is no ordinary race.
It's one of the most unique things about our community.
Unique is one way to put it.
You know, yeah, absolutely.
To get into this race, Max has to build a pair of wooden skis.
Oh, I'm going for number one, always. Eye of the tiger.
This is the Plumas Ski Club Longboard Revival Race.
Basic rules is no spitting and cheating.
It's the oldest ski competition in the nation.
And first person, man or woman across the finish line wins.
This wacky event is rich with history dating back to the 1850s.
Miners were coming to mining camps in the La Sierra, and they started making these longboards 10 to 15 feet long.
In the beginning, wooden skis were means of transportation in the winter.
And then once they did that, they realized we could make some money by having races.
Most of those races took place here in Johnsville below Eureka Lake. Today, their tradition is carried on just like it did in the 1850s. Even the competitors' clothing is authentic.
I've been told that size doesn't matter. Does size matter?
Oh, it definitely does.
Some say the longer the skis, the faster you go, but others will tell you it's more about what you put on the skis.
It's all about the dope. Dope is king, brother.
All right, so in the longboard world, dope is a nickname for wax, and each competitor applies their own blend of wax dope to make their longboards go faster. In Max's case, his blend of dope wax may have made his skis a little too fast to handle.
This is my first year. I haven't podiumed. I'm just really disappointed in myself.
Not only that, but you broke your tip.
Man, there's always next year.
In the end, only one man and one woman will earn the right to be longboard champion.
3, 2, 1, Michael! Yay!
That was the 2021 U.S. Capitol Christmas tree lighting. The 84-foot tall white fir was cut down in Northern California at the Six Rivers National Forest. It traveled almost 4,000 miles to get to our nation's capital, and we were there to watch it when it was cut down. There's no shortage of Christmas trees in the Six Rivers National Forest, with more than 974,000 acres of mountainous land stretching from the Oregon border to Mendocino County. It's full of pine, fir, cedar, and redwood. The only problem, getting that Christmas tree out of the forest. This is Sugar Bear, an 84-foot tall white fir that was chosen to be the next U.S. Capitol Christmas tree.
We've been working on this since January. Yeah, so a long time.
This is Forester Jeff Jones, and he's the one who found the tree. But before it can be delivered to our nation's capital, a team of people have to work together to cut it down.
This is not your first tree you've climbed up.
Oh, no. I've done it 13 years. For utility power lines.
If you were to just cut down the tree, it would fall and break most of its branches. That's why arborist Patrick Dublin must climb the tree and attach it to a crane that'll hold it in place.
I'm gonna do my best not to break any. Hopefully it's like an angel floating down from heaven and slinging this thing up and it's going to DC.
The tradition of choosing the U.S. Capitol Christmas tree started in 1964.
first Christmas tree was actually planted, but after wind and root damage killed it, the Capitol architect started choosing from different national forests to cut the Christmas tree down from.
So the U.S. Capitol Christmas Tree Program exists to connect people to the public lands and to their national forests.
Samantha Rejo says there's more than 150 national forests in the United States, so it's a pretty big deal that this year's Capitol architect chose the Six Rivers National Forest to provide the tree.
So in its 51-year history, this is the 5th time that California has been selected to have a national forest provide the people's tree.
We're going to be doing it as 2 cuts, one relief cut on the backside and then another cut to follow through.
Brandon Banwall is the man tasked with actually cutting the tree, and with the rain, it's not exactly ideal conditions.
There's a potential it might move around a little bit, but we're gonna jump away from the tree, and like I said, that's when the crane takes over.
With the tree cut, Jeff can now count the growth rings and get a more accurate estimate of its age.
I just finished counting them, and it's 38 years old.
38?
38, yeah.
All right, so the challenge now is to get this 10,000-pound tree completely sideways on the trailer without breaking any of those limbs. It's a tough one.
Heading back a little. Good.
Once it's on the trailer, the work doesn't stop there. Truck drivers Mike and Jeremy must maneuver the tree down the narrow Forest Service roads using a special trailer.
So these back axles will actually pivot. There's a guy in a car behind us that has a remote, and he will steer as you go around the corner.
The Capitol Christmas tree has a long journey ahead of it. Over the next 3 weeks, it'll travel over 4,000 miles and make around 19 stops in California and towns along the way to Washington, D.C.
It'll be amazing just to think that I get to light this tree.
And when the tree is finally set up at the U.S. Capitol, Michael Marvis will be there. The Crescent City 5th grader won an essay contest, earning him a trip to D.C. to light the tree.
I spent almost as many hours researching as I did actually writing.
Modern snowshoes are a great way to get around in deep snow, and we can thank the Washoe tribe for showing early settlers how they were made. And the construction of those authentic snowshoes lives on in the Hope Valley.
You won't find any pine nut forests in the urban lowlands of Carson City, Nevada. You won't find many places to fish either. There's no wild potatoes, no wild turnips, tule roots, or berries for that matter. But what you will find is willow bush. It's one of the few natural resources that the Washoe tribe can still easily get in this area.
They're mostly like one of our number one go-to resource.
The Washoe, as they are called, are native to the shores of Lake Tahoe and the snow-covered mountains of the Sierras.
When it was just us traditionally, we used this as a lot of our stuff, actually.
The tribe has a grim history with white settlers. Lies, deceit, disease, relocation, re-education, and a reservation ultimately landed them here, far from the clear waters of Tahoe and miles from the bountiful forest floors.
The removal acts and stuff like that, we kind of lost our tradition, but at least we're starting to pick it up again.
Washoe traditions date back 10,000 years, but it only took 100 to lose one tradition that used to define them.
Like our snowshoes, our traditional snowshoes, they're different from other cultures' snowshoes.
The Washoe are debatably the first people to use snowshoes. When white settlers first encountered the tribe, they saw the people running over the snow, wearing willow and rawhide baskets on their feet.
As people on the tops of the Sierras, all the other tribes kind of in the lowlands, we were the only ones crossing the Sierras during the winter. We were the only ones really using the snowshoes and that entire trade route in general.
When settlers took over the Tahoe region, it didn't take long to forget the traditions of making snowshoes.
It's a way of travel, it's a method of travel. And so when we were restricted to reservations, we didn't need to travel like we had to. When we were given commodity foods, there was really no reason to hunt like we used to in the winter.
The Washoe tribe is small, which made it easy for the government to force elders into rocky, dry land, push parents into labor positions, and send their children to boarding school, where their language was taken from them.
We're on the way to being extinct. We're classified as a moribund language.
Today, just 10 people in the world can speak the Washoe language. But that's changing. With the help of old artifacts and photos, the tribe is relearning how to weave rawhide and bend willows the way their ancestors did. When we come back, we head to the coast to see the nation's tallest Christmas tree and learn what butterfat is. Bartell's Backroads will return after the break. Hey, welcome back to Bartell's Backroads. Sometimes bigger is better, especially when you're talking Christmas trees. But if you head down to the little coastal town of Ferndale in December, you'll find the nation's largest living Christmas tree. The grass is always greener in Ferndale. Every year, the soggy soil is doused with an average of 43 inches of rainfall. Drought is rarely a problem here, and that's why it makes for an ideal grazing land for dairy cows. They're not a talkative bunch. Ferndale is a dairy town. It always has been, and it probably always will be. But it wasn't exactly milk that made this town profitable.
Our butterfat, our cream, was in high demand in San Francisco.
Before long, historian and Chamber of Commerce member Paul Beatty says the dairymen of Ferndale became wealthy, and they started building what's called butterfat palaces.
Lumber was cheap, and egos were big, so they started building these butterfat palaces.
In Ferndale, a butterfat palace is a Victorian-style home or business, laced with an exorbitant amount of what's called gingerbread.
That's all like the doilies and all that woodworking.
That gingerbread, or fancy house trim, became a status symbol, and rich dairymen competed to build the best dairy fat palaces, and today, you'll find them all over town. If you come at the first week of December, you can witness the lighting of America's tallest Christmas tree.
Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, thought they had a taller one, but then they killed it by leaving the lights on all the time.
And a trip to Ferndale wouldn't be complete without stopping by the fairgrounds and paying your respects to some of the prize-winning cows that made this town prosperous. Man, you really gotta be one heck of a milking cow to get your own headstone here. Ferndale is a town full of history, agriculture, and a few oddities. And if you don't mind a little rain, it's well worth a visit. California is a great place to visit during the winter, and there's a whole lot more to see. Just head over to abc10.com/backroads and check out my interactive map. You'll see a whole list of my adventures, and heck, you might even find an adventure of your own. I'm John Bartell. Hope to see you on the Backroad.